Aviva Stadium in Dublin, the home of the
reaching the stretch run of Florida State baseball season here, and it's been a pretty impressive turnaround. I mean, a consensus top 10 team, a top 5 team, and a few polls even. And I think a big part of that is new Florida State baseball pitching coach Micah Posey, who's joining me here. Micah, appreciate you very much taking time out of your schedule today.
Yeah, thanks, Kurt. Thanks for having me. I appreciate you.
For sure. Yeah, I guess we should start. I mean, you grew up here. I'm sure came to plenty of games. I guess, how has year one in the program, being a part of this program, compared to, I guess, what you thought it was going to be coming in?
Yeah, I mean, coming to the games and watching it from afar, definitely the brand of baseball that was being played, I always enjoyed, now being on the other side of it, it definitely has a different feel, just because, I guess you're not taking in as much of the game as you are just kind of going pitch by pitch, and, it's baseball, and it's kind of, so there is definitely a different feel to it being in the dugout. It's probably more business-like, less pleasure, less enjoyment, but at the same time, just trying to take it one pitch at a time.
I guess we kind of got to start when you're talking about your pitching staff at the top with Jamie Arnold, a guy who's a real, I mean, at this point, I think a contender, maybe even front runner for ACC Pitcher of the Year. I guess, so when you get here over the summer, I guess, what was your intro to Jamie like, and how quickly did you realize kind of his pretty impressive potential and how quickly he might be able to realize it?
Yeah, I watched some video on Jamie, and, you could see the arm slot was different. It was kind of a funky look. He was a kind of a twitchy guy, kind of a loose mover, athletic, fluid. And so it didn't take me long. And then when I took the job, actually Link basically told me, like, hey, this guy's going to be really good. Like, you just wait. And, I think Link last year and Chuck and those guys had some conversation with Jamie on the side and just tell him, like, hey, man, like, this is what you could be. And kind of what he is now is, I think, the vision they had for him last year. And so when I took the job, there was no secret that Jamie Arnold was going to end up being this. But, to this magnitude, to what he's done has been pretty impressive.
Yeah. I mean, he's been kind of exactly what y'all have needed, especially the last few weeks when you've been without Cam, without Connor, just in terms of consistency. You kind of know what you're going to get week in and week out. I guess, what allows him, do you think, to be so consistent? And I mean, it's a pretty impressive jump from freshman year to sophomore year in doing so.
He has a lot of confidence in himself, and it's kind of a quiet confidence. I think on the mound sometimes you'll see some of the facial expressions, which are great, but it's kind of a quiet confidence, and he's very low maintenance, and he just, I don't know, he's a pleasure to be around, pleasure to work with. I mean, he's one of the easier guys I've ever had to work with. Hey, Jamie, we're going to slide your bullpen over today. Hey, yeah, coach, that's fine. Like, whenever, like, hey, what do you work on? Like, he always has a plan, and, so he's been a constant professional throughout this time. And then, with those two guys going down, Whitaker and Ladder, like, he's definitely shouldered some of that load going in against Burns and Santucci and some of the better arms in this league. He's definitely gone toe-to-toe with those guys, and that's kind of what we needed him to do.
You talked about shouldering the load. I guess another guy who's kind of done that the last few weeks is definitely Carson Dorsey, stepping into that Saturday spot. Yeah. I guess how a guy like him, how close was he? I guess he was already lined up before you got here. He's not a guy, I guess, you recruited here. How close was he in that conversation kind of to start the year? I imagine he was one of the final guys to be in the weekend rotation. And it seems like the starting role has really suited him transitioning back. What's allowed him to transition back so effortlessly, it seems?
Yeah, Carson could have easily been a weekend starter to start the season. I think he had one of the better preseasons of anybody, and we actually got him up the same 5 pitches in the preseason. He was doing that. He was starting. He was going 3, 4, 5 innings in the preseason. When we got to it, we felt like, we had some other guys that could start, and he had swing and miss stuff. And in the bullpen, like, that's important, especially in this league. And if you're going to do what you want to do in postseason play, you need to swing and miss. And he was getting a ton of it in the preseason. We thought he could kind of be that hybrid because he was good against lefties. He was good against righties. There was swing and miss. There was some different traits. The one thing that with Carson, that he never had thrown in the pen a ton. So, going down there, he was good in that role for a little bit, but then I think there was times where he overthrew and kind of lost his delivery. And then since transitioning into the starter role, the pins in between starts have been huge for him, where he can work on his pitch mix, he can work on his secondary pitches. Against Duke, you saw him throw 4 pitches for strikes. In relief, that wasn't really the case, and so for him, honing his craft and becoming like a more complete pitcher has definitely allowed him to kind of be what he has been the last 2 weeks.
With Carson, I think he's had 4 starts, and I think 3 of them on the road were really his 3 best starts. Is that something? I mean, is there something innate you maybe can't teach guys who handle those adverse situations maybe even better than a home environment?
Yeah, a lot of it is just kind of your experiences, right? Like it's, what experiences have you been through? It's hard to train for something that you've never been through. Carson's been through JUCO for 2 years, and he's thrown in some, in Florida, he came in relief and leverage on the road. At Clemson, he came in leverage twice on the road, and some of those didn't work out well for him. But him being in those environments, now he's kind of used to that, and now here we are. It's kind of become more of a something he's used to.
Yeah. So with Cam and Connor, I'm not pressing for details, a timeline, or anything for that. But I know Link has said and been pretty adamant that he believes they're going to be back at some point. Obviously, Ben was back over the weekend after being out almost 2 months. With guys like that, where they were extended, but now they've been out for a while, I guess, how do you approach, should you get them back? I mean, how can you kind of ramp them up? Where do they have to start after being out for a while? I'm sure they can't be thrown right back out where they were workload wise.
Yeah, it's going to be tough just to throw them right back out into a 5-inning start and expect them to go 80, 90, 100 pitches. I don't think that's going to be the case. But I think we'd all agree, like if we could get those guys back for 2 and 3 innings in a regional setting, that would be big. And so for us, we're just trying to get those guys back on the runway. Leiter, I don't want to disclose too many details just for his privacy, but it would be like a runner that has shin splints. Like the guy's going to be healthy. He's going to be able to sprint full speed at some point, but you're working through it week by week to see, hey, when does this alleviate heal up? For that sprinter, like we know there's no season-ending injury to the ACL. We know there's nothing, season-ending, but at the same time, like you have to be courtesy to that athlete week by week, and when does this heal up to where you can compete at 100% intent? And nobody wants to be on that mound more than Cam Leiter. I promise you that. Every day he's itching to get back out there, and he's talking about it. And he came here when I saw him this summer. We were talking, and the brief conversation we had was he came here to win a national championship and pitch in Omaha and do those things. That's why he didn't say anything about the draft, nothing. So for him, I know this is agonizing, but we hope to get him out sooner or later. And then Whitaker is progressing great. His throwing program has looked very well. We're hoping to get him on the mound here in a few days and kind of reassess and see where that goes.
With not to look too far in the future, because you're very much still in the thick of the season, but with Jamie and Cam both being, I guess, sophomores who you're going to have next year, do you already start thinking a little about what you can spend the next off season with them on, of kind of the next things in their game they can find, knowing you're going to have those guys another year?
Yeah, absolutely. You're always, there's always layers to this. There's always things you're looking to do. I mean, Jamie's already talked to me about throwing a cutter next year. He's already put the plan of the seed. That's what he wants to do. So yeah, there's absolutely, those guys need something to work towards. It gets stale if it's just plug and chug all the time. But yeah, there's definitely gonna be things we look at. I think evolving the changeup more with Jamie. I think it's a good pitch, but evolving it to where he could use it, more, I think is going to be the next step for him. And with Cam, what's going to allow him to stay healthy, and his pitch mix is pretty advanced. I think it's just going to be some refinement of his delivery and those things.
Pivoting to the bullpen, we talked after a game a few weeks ago to Brendan Oxford. He's definitely an interesting dude. He was pretty candid, honestly. He talked about, I guess, a pretty candid conversation you and he had, I think, back in the preseason or early in the season, sometime over the off season, just about, I mean, him and what he needed to do, things like that. I guess I'm not asking you to, I guess, divulge details of a private conversation, but how have you seen him respond to, I mean, I don't know if it was a challenge or what it was. I mean, he's been probably your most reliable reliever all season.
Yeah. Ox is an older guy. He's been around the block. You can shoot those older guys between the eyes a little bit more candid. You can be a little bit more straight and direct and honest with those guys maybe than you can a freshman. Sometimes they're able to take information a little bit better. But Ox just had like kind of a moment in the preseason, and probably more so the fall in the preseason. I don't think the preseason is fair. Probably more so the fall where I'm a new pitching coach here. I don't really know him that well. I'm trying to get to know him. We're asking him to do a lot of different things, but then it kind of boiled down to like, what's his identity as a pitcher? And I just asked him that, and I don't know how much he knew. So, we went to work on like, hey, this is where you get swing and miss. This is where you throw strikes. This is the pitch that you get swing and misses against righties and lefties, and just try to formulate a plan of like, this is where you should throw your fastball. This is where you should throw your break ball. And I think for him, like just kind of outlining who he is as a pitcher. And then for him, like he took that and ran with it and made it his own. And he's actually evolved from that conversation. Like he's much more than what that conversation was. And he's been big for us this year. And, he's definitely a guy we trust with the baseball, late in the game.
Yeah, I wrote the story and talked to you about it. Got to watch some of the pitching lab before the season. I talked a little or asked a little, I guess, about how valuable that is over the course of a season, not just kind of in the off season. But how have you seen that? I mean, he's somebody who that played out where you've been able to use the pitching lab during the season pretty proactively.
Yeah, I mean, just to be frank with you, the lab during the season's hard for the relievers because they're hot every 2 to 3 days. So
Sure.
we don't get to touch those guys in the lab a ton. The starters get to do it every week. Like they have their day every week where they get to go in there and work on things. Relievers, it's like you're hot every day. And so to go in there and spend time trying to shape a pitch or refine something, it's hard. This week we didn't have a midweek. Every reliever was able to go down there and touch it and do stuff and work on things. Noah Short was working on, a different fastball profile yesterday. Saucer was working on a different breaking ball profile. Lout was refining, the firmness of the slider. Like there was things we were able to do the last couple of days that we haven't been able to do. And, we didn't take those 2 days for granted.
I know pretty much all sports, you talk about response, you talk about learning from failure, things like that. I mean, there might not be a bigger recent example for y'all than John Abraham turning around from what happened at Wake Forest to what he did to clinch the series up at Duke Saturday. I guess how encouraging is seeing a younger guy like him, a freshman, really grow through those moments and start to thrive more in those moments? And I guess what does that tell you about a younger pitcher?
Yeah, I mean, this is a results oriented business. Like, wins and losses, like that's important. Like you can't discount wins and losses. Like that's what it is. But at the same time, like when you fail and things don't go your way, you can't take that experience and throw it away. You have to be able to take something away from that. So at Wake Forest, he didn't feel like he was his best version of himself, and he wasn't attacking the strike zone. He was up there trying to kind of not lose the game, maybe, and just trying, so against Duke, he actually went down 3-1 the count. And then he proceeded to rip off 3 of the best pitches he's thrown this season. And for him to do that in that moment, it felt like there was some learning and some growth in those moments. And, as a coach, that's what you want to see. You want to see guys grow and learn from their failures and, kind of keep this thing moving forward.
Jamie's obviously not the standard for kind of that freshman to sophomore year jump. He took a pretty abnormally large one. Like you can't expect everyone to do that, but how important is that freshman to sophomore offseason? I know a lot of guys will probably go throw in the Cape or something like that. And there's just, is that, I mean, do you in your opinion, maybe the biggest offseason for a guy to take that step into the future?
Yeah. I mean, the offseason after your freshman, like it's huge. Like from the end of the freshman season to the start of the sophomore, like that's the biggest growth in a college baseball's career. If you look at like Cam Smith and some of these guys, like it's a massive time for them to grow. And, a lot of times that growth comes going away from home, playing summer ball and kind of grinding it out and learning more about yourself as a person. But Link's done a good job with these guys as far as like the game plan of like, hey, this is how they're going to continue to develop. We've already started those conversations with our guys right now for this summer and what we're doing moving forward. Like those conversations are happening. And so, yeah, that growth, after the freshman year, I was talking to Chavez before the game. We were down on the field and Chavez was like, man, I redshirted my freshman year. And then my actual freshman year, my second year, he's like, it was way too fast. He's like, it took me 3 years to kind of settle in and we know what he was here. And so it just takes some guys some time to get settled in and kind of grow into who they are and figure out who they are.
On the way out here, you brought up Link, and I should ask. I'm sure you had some sort of relationship with Link before coming here, being a Tallahassee guy, him a Tallahassee guy, both in college baseball. But what stands out about him as a coach working alongside him? I guess how is he maybe different than you thought? How is he better than you thought? What stands out about him as a coach, as a manager?
I mean, you're talking about one of the best coaches in the country. I mean, his track record of success everywhere he's been has been unparalleled. I think the thing that I've come to, his passion for the game is you feel that every day, in the details and nuances of defense and team D, and, just the expectation he has of pitchers filling their position. Like, he's definitely, that side of the game. Like, I knew, that he was detail oriented, but just the fundamentals and just how he looks at the game is pretty cool. And then you pair that with just his passion for Florida State and what this place means to him. And you take those two passions and you put it together. Like, every day we come out here, like, it means something. And there's not a day we come out here where it's just like, we're just kind of trying to, we're all working towards something. But being around him every day, just the way he looks at the details of, the stadium and the landscape and the cages and the locker room and how to get the best use out of space underneath the stadium and how to develop players and, how, it's all been pretty fun to be around him every day.
Micah, I greatly appreciate you taking the time. Should be another crazy atmosphere at Hauser. I'm sure nice to be home after 2 weeks on the road for the NC State series this weekend.
Yeah, we're all excited to be home, and it'll be a big series, and we're looking forward to a top 25 matchup in Hauser. It'll be fun.
Hey, Seminole fans, Alumni Hall is your ultimate FSU shopping experience and has moved to a new location off Timberlane Road in Tallahassee. Shop FSU gear from Nike, Champion, New Era, Yeti, and more. Alumni Hall has Seminole gear for the entire family, plus accessories and gifts. Spend $150 and you'll earn $10 off your next purchase with their Hall Pass rewards. Stop by their new location on Timberlane Road near REI, or shop anytime online at alumnihall.com. Alumni Hall, where Seminole fans shop.